Welcome, everyone. My name is Vincenza, and joining me today is Jeremy, and we are program coordinators for the Empowering Financial Wellness Program with USU Extension. This webinar is brought to you by Utah State University in partnership with the Utah Department of Workforce Services. So today we're going to talk about strategies as it relates to credit reports and understanding your credit reports and how to read them. So if you don't already have your name on your Zoom profile, please introduce yourself. We'd love to hear where you're tuning in from. And also Christy Lynn is with us today. She's on our team as well. She will be moderating. So if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat and we'll make sure that your questions get answered. All right, we've got somebody from Logan. Let's get started. I wanted to share actually something fun with you. Little, if I can pull that up. Oh, it's not on my screen. Do you have it, Jeremy? Okay, I will, hold on one second. I could pull it up for you. Okay, share my screen. Sorry for that technical mishap there. It was on my screen.
Where my credit score's at these days. I don't know a lot about credit scores. You know, I've been seeing a lot of commercials for checking your credit score. These commercials act like you can fix all your problems by just checking your credit score. They say they don't give you no other instructions. You know, they just want you to check it. They say things like, "You don't want to live with your parents forever, do you? Well, you better check that credit score." But it's like if you check it and it's bad, it's still bad. Like checking don't help. Like, I'd like to see this play out in a bank somewhere, right? Like some guy comes in to get a loan and the banker's there and he's like, "Well, Jim, your credit score's terrible. But I see here that you've been checking it a lot." We appreciate that. So here's a house.
We wish it was that easy, right? It's not that easy, but it is important. Really, the point of that is that it is important to check your credit reports and understand what they are, what's in them, because it affects your credit scores. So just a little fun little spin on that. Let me share my screen so you can see the presentation. There we go. Okay, so in talking about credit scores, credit reports, what's on your credit report has a lot of important things about your financial life. That's why it's so important to understand it. And so today we're going to discuss how to read and how to actually understand a credit report, primarily so that you can protect your credit and protect yourself from identity theft. So these are today's objectives. We're going to talk about understanding your credit report, how to read it, how to recognize red flags in your credit report, and then what do you do in the event that you suspect that maybe there was identity theft, somebody's stolen your information for their own personal use. So I'm gonna start with just a quick poll. So maybe in the chat, if you could put do you have a poll? You already have the poll, right on. Okay, so just a quick poll. A lot of times with credit, there are a lot of myths out there. And then sometimes when you hear a myth enough, people think it's true. So this is just an opportunity to kind of dispel some of those myths out there or just reaffirm what maybe you have heard. So the first question is, you have to be a victim of identity theft in order to request a freeze on your credit reports. Is that true or false? The second question is, checking your own credit report can affect your credit score. Next question is, you only need to check your credit report if you're applying for a loan or a credit card. And then the last question, can children be victims of identity theft? So let us know if you think that's true or false. I'll just give you a few seconds to answer those. Okay, so first question, you have to be a victim of identity theft in order to freeze your credit, and that's actually false. As of September of 2018, anybody can for free. It used to be that if you were a victim of identity theft or if you were older, then you were allowed to do that for free. But after what happened with that breach with Equifax and back in 2017, it was mandated by Congress that all consumers can freeze their credit reports for free. And freezing your credit reports, it's one of the best free ways to prevent somebody from stealing your identity. So it's really a great benefit that we have. Second one is checking your own credit report can affect your credit score. This is probably one of the biggest myths that we hear a lot in working in the field of personal finance. So you can check your credit report as many times as you want. That does not affect your credit score. So do not be concerned about pulling your credit report too often. It will not affect your credit score. The third question is, you should only check your credit report before you apply for a loan or a credit card. While it's important to do that, that's false. It's not the only time that you should check your credit report. You should be checking them periodically throughout the year. At a minimum, one time a year. Before the pandemic, all three credit bureaus allowed you to check your credit report from each of the three major credit reporting agencies once a year for free. And since the pandemic, they're allowing you to do that once a week for free by going to annualcreditreport.com. And that's going to stay in place at least until April of 2022. It was set to expire April of this year, but due to the ongoing pandemic, they decided to extend that another year. And so the last question is, children can be victims of identity theft. That is true, sadly. Even though children don't file taxes and most of them don't have credit cards, they're actually 35 times more likely than adults to be victims of identity theft. And so the fact is that because young children don't usually have credit, there's a long period of time before there's fraud, and then the child actually realizes that their identity has been stolen. As all you need is a social security number. So if somebody gets a hold of a social security number of a child, they could do some damage. So you can also freeze a child's credit report. It's a little bit more involved than an adult freezing their credit report, but it can be done. And you just have to go to each of the credit reporting agencies, Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian. They each have their own protocol for freezing a minor's credit. So just check with them for specifics. So now we're going to talk about, Jeremy's going to take you through our first objective, which is how to read your credit report.
Okay, so if you've checked your credit report, you've probably seen a lot of information on it. Numbers, details, places, names. So it's important that you understand what's on it so that you can see if it's accurate. Okay, a credit report is all the information that one of the three credit bureaus, either Equifax, Experian, or TransUnion, has compiled about you. Okay, so even though credit reports compile similar information, these three agencies, they're competitors, so their reports will look a little bit different. So depending on which bureau created your report. So, but most of the things that we'll talk about today, you will see them in their on each of these reports. They might be called something different based depending on which credit report you're pulling, but they're basically similar information. So first is your personal information section. It's important to review the basic information on your report, such as your name and address. Okay, it's possible that not all your addresses will be listed here. Usually it's only the addresses that you lived in when you applied for credit. Usually. And so it's important to look at those addresses. If there's an address there that's not listed, I mean, if there's an address there that's listed that you've never lived in before, that's something that you should be wary about. Same goes to employers, okay? And just make sure that the numbers and the spelling and the dates are accurate, especially your social security number, the spelling of your name, and if you've changed names throughout your life, say you got married or you got divorced and you went back to your previous name, make sure that all those names are spelled correctly. And the second one is your credit summary. So for your credit summary, this lists all the different accounts you have, including any delinquent accounts. If you have any delinquent accounts, it should be listed in this section. If it's not there and you have a delinquent account, something is wrong, or if there's a delinquent account that you did not open, we'll talk about that in a little bit. That's a red flag. Okay. In the account history section, it also lists all your accounts. So make sure you recognize all the accounts listed on the report. This is where you make sure that the type of account, the account number, date of last payment, monthly payment amount, current payment status, current balance, list of previous payments, they should be listed on here. You also want to check the payment history on those accounts. If you have any loans in forbearance or on a new or deferred payment plan, make sure that it's not hurting your credit report. If you remember, because of the pandemic, the CARES Act generally requires your creditors to report any accounts in forbearance as current. Say you have a mortgage loan and it's in forbearance right now because you can't make payments because of the pandemic, things like that. The CARES Act, requires your creditors to report those accounts as current. Okay, if it's not listed as current, check with your creditor. Anyone going through a divorce or that has been a fraud victim especially has to be extra vigilant. If you've been unable to pay your bills, like I said, due to the pandemic or a job loss, you've made payments or payment arrangements with your creditors, make sure that they're keeping your accounts in good standing. You can also place a what we call a personal statement on your credit report. And this is especially helpful in the event that you have been a victim of identity theft and you're experiencing ongoing issues with your credit. Because remember, when say, for example, you're in the process of resolving an identity theft case, sometimes it takes it's not a quick process. It takes a while, sometimes up to a year or so. And there might be some activity there that's still going on while you're in the process of resolving the identity theft case. So you could write an explanation why you missed a payment or why you think something is incorrectly reported on your credit report. Any accounts in collections as well can remain on your credit report for up to 7 years. Even if you've already paid it in full, it's still considered a negative account and will stay on your credit report as paid collection. And also sometimes the balance there will be more than what you remember as your balance, because remember, it's in collection, so it accrues interest on and so that balance grows over time. And the next one is record of request for credit history. So this is everything that this is a list of every institution that has requested your credit report. So there's two kinds of increase. You have to remember there's hard increase and there's soft increase. Earlier in the poll, we talked about you pulling your credit report. That's considered a soft pull. If you do that, it doesn't really affect your score. So really, if you look at your credit report, check which everything listed there should be something you recognize. Okay, if you've bought a car, then the dealership must have pulled your credit report. Or if you borrowed money to pay for a car, or you applied for a mortgage loan, it should be there. If you applied for a credit card, it should be there. If there's something there that's you didn't apply for, and somebody pulled, and there's an institution there that pulled your account, then that's a red flag, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. So hard increase, drop off after 2 years, and the effects on your credit score can vary because the models and the algorithms that they use, it's different as well. So soft increase will appear in that section, like I said, but it doesn't really affect your score that much. So sometimes your employer will pull it. That's to check your credit report. That can happen as well. You can also see any records there that where, say, a company or a credit card issuer, mortgage lender checked on your account. Your credit report. The next one is public records. So right now, what you should expect to see there is bankruptcy. That's it. Okay, if you have ever filed for bankruptcy, that's the only public record that will show up in your credit report. So if a bankruptcy shows up there and you've never filed for bankruptcy, it's a red flag. Back in the day, you would see liens here because that's a public record, but now it's just bankruptcy that you should expect to see on there. Okay, did I already talked about request for credit history, right?
Yes, you did.
Okay. All right. So now Vincenza is going to talk about those red flags that you need to be watching out for. Like I said, there's so many things that's listed on your credit report. It could go between 2 to 3, 4 pages, sometimes depending on your financial history. But Vincenza is going to talk about those red flags that should be glaring to you guys.
Okay, so some red flags to look out for. Going back to the summary section. So that's usually when you pull a credit report, it's going to show you that summary section first, because that would alert you immediately to anything that, if there's been a missed payment, if something's in collections or negative information reported. So take a really close look at that. If there's something that you're like, I haven't missed a payment, or I don't know what this account is, you may need to call the creditors that are reporting that to get to the bottom of it. And then in the personal information section, check for an incorrect misspelling of names, any address you don't recognize. If your social security number is like 1 digit off, those are all potential red flags. Well, it's not uncommon for creditors to, we're humans, we make mistakes. Somebody typed it in and missed a letter or something. But it could also indicate a sign of identity theft. So addresses you don't recognize, why would there be an address on there that you don't recognize? Well, somebody could have attempted to open a card in your name and is having a statement mailed to a different address. Why do people do that? Because they don't have good credit. And so they're stealing other people's identity in order to obtain credit. So if you find any information that's incorrect, you can go online with the credit reporting agency, and there's a section you can actually dispute it. The next section would be the account history. So again, are there any accounts listed that you don't recognize? Sometimes it's like, oh, I forgot I had that card. I don't even use it anymore. That's an instance where you may want to consider closing it, up to you. If it's an account, a lot of times if it's an account that's been inactive for a certain period of time, the the grantor or the creditor will close it down anyway. So that, again, that's up to you. If some people that have had a card for a long time, if you want to keep it active, they typically say try to use it at least once a year, buy gas or groceries or something, just so it stays active. Is your payment history accurate? Make sure if you've never missed a payment, a late payment usually is not reported until it's been 30 days. What else? Look over the details carefully. Make sure that if there's negative information, sometimes we have negative information, and if it's accurate, it is what it is. But if it's not us or it's not accurate, we need to make sure that, again, we dispute it with the credit reporting agency that's reporting it. Records of requests for credit history. Would be what we call the inquiries section. So are there inquiries that you don't recognize? Because again, just because somebody accesses your credit doesn't necessarily mean they may be successful in obtaining the credit, but you would see the attempt at the credit card company or the car dealership trying to pull your credit. So again, if you're not shopping for a credit card, you're not shopping for a car or a loan, that could be a red flag. So if you see that, start by contacting the creditor's fraud department to have that account investigated. And I would what we recommend is filing an identity theft report with the Federal Trade Commission, because the more you get on top of it, more ahead of it you can be, the easier it will be to kind of nip it in the bud. And you would go to, we'll provide this as a resource as in conclusion of this webinar. We'll send a follow-up email, but the website is www.identitytheft.gov. And you could dispute also the account with the credit bureau that was reporting it as well. Any accounts in collections, like Jeremy said, there might be, if you do have an account collection, I remember I had something on there I forgot was something from college, from a place where you rent videos. I'm totally dating myself, but anyway, and the balance was much bigger because they'll put late fees, they'll put penalties. So it could have been a $50 thing that you forgot to pay, but it could grow to several $100s. So again, is there an account in collections that you didn't open, that you don't recognize? It could, if you see something on there, it could potentially be identity theft, or there's an original creditor you don't recognize. Sometimes if it's already been sold to a debt collection agency, it's not always easy to identify, well, who was the original creditor? And if you try to call the original creditor, sometimes they just pass you on to the debt collector that's taking care of that account. So again, just open a dispute. If there's something you don't recognize, open a dispute with the credit bureaus. They have the responsibility to investigate that, and typically they have to respond to you within 30 days. And you can always file an identity theft report with the Federal Trade Commission. And then lastly, we talked about the public records. A misreported bankruptcy filing, that's probably the thing that hurts your credit the most. So if you file for bankruptcy, and even if the dates are incorrect, that's super important, because you may have a negative hit to your credit report for longer than really you're supposed to. It depends on the type of bankruptcy that you filed. Sometimes it stays on for 7, sometimes it stays on for 10. So just if you do have a legitimate bankruptcy on a credit report, just make sure to double check the dates and the filing information. And again, dispute any public record inaccuracies with the credit bureau that is reporting that immediately. So talked about some red flags and things to look out for. It's really important to read through your credit report. And then Jeremy's going to take you through, well, what happens if you are a victim of identity theft, or you suspect that you might be a victim of identity theft? What are some steps that?
Okay, so if any of those apply to you, like Vincenza explained, there's a few things you could do right away. Well, first, contact the credit reporting agency to start an investigation on that, and then file a police report. Sometimes the cops will do it out of courtesy, but you'll find that during this whole investigation process, that report is going to be really helpful. And of course, report it on the Federal Trade Commission website, which I think Kristalyn put in the chat. The web address is identitytheft.gov. It's a really great resource. But what do you need to do if this happens to you? Exactly. I mean, there's millions of people who become victims of identity theft. Quick story. This is how common it is, right? These criminals, they've created many different creative ways to get to your information. It's back in the day, it would be like they call you and they would say, something is going on with your credit card. We need this and this and this information. And they create a sense of panic in you, and you just give out your information. Next thing you know, somebody else is using your card, right? It's very common. Credit card fraud is most common among all these things. But just a quick story. 2 weeks ago, I was expecting a time sensitive package. It's super time sensitive that because I have to use it on a certain day, and it has to arrive on a certain day because it has to be put in the freezer, right? So I get this notification from UPS saying that my package was undeliverable because I wasn't home for some reason, but I was home, undeliverable. And if I wanted delivered back, click on this link, right? And so that I can arrange for it to be redelivered to me. Or I could go to their warehouse and pick it up there. That already sounded fishy, right? So, but because of, I should know this, but I clicked on the link. It took me to a website that looked exactly like UPS tracking. Here's the catch. This is how I opened my eyes. I was able to open my eyes. It's asking for information about, it was asking credit card information because I needed to pay for redelivery. And I was like, that's it. These people are phishing. So I called UPS, reported that I got a scam text, and they said, thank you. They appreciated that. But if because it was super time sensitive, the package that I was expecting, and I was expecting a package from UPS, I took the bait, right? And if I wasn't looking for being wary of those signs, I would have given out my information, to be honest. So just be careful. Criminals right now they're very creative people, right? From dumpster diving to, creating a sense of panic in you so that you would give out your information. Anyway, so that's just a quick side story. So what do you need to do in case of identity theft? Well, your first step is fraud alerts. If you have a fraud alert on your credit, it requires creditors to check your credit report. It requires creditors who check your credit report to verify your identity before moving forward with the process. Okay. There's two kinds. Your initial fraud alert, it will be on your file for a year. Usually this is a courtesy from a credit reporting bureau or whoever it is that had your information compromised. Say, they would offer a free 1 year fraud alert on your credit. And then after that year has passed, you can actually place an extended alert after your identity has been stolen and you filed for identity theft. Usually you could, I think it's up to 7 years. It's good for 7 years. So those are the two things that you can do to put fraud alerts on your credit. The next one is check your financial accounts, especially if, say, you lost your wallet or you lost your phone or whatever, because we have a lot of our financial information on our phone as well. So that's one of the things that would make you very vulnerable to identity theft is if you've lost an item that has your financial information. So one thing you can do is right away check your financial accounts, close any accounts that were opened without your permission, and close any accounts that have any unauthorized activity. And you will see this sometimes when you say if you lost your credit card and you would call for a replacement, they have you check the most recent transactions so that you will see if, say, or the last time I used this card was at Walmart, but there's already a transaction somewhere else, but that happened after I lost my card. So those are the kinds of unauthorized activity that you you would want to look out for, especially if you've lost your credit card or your wallet or any item that has your financial information. So also check your computer for viruses. Computers infected by malware is what we call them, would allow a hacker to steal sensitive data from your computer. So make sure that you run your antivirus program to scan for any viruses, because your financial information on any of your devices is only as safe as you make them. So make sure that you have your antivirus installed on there. It's up to date, and you have all your firewalls set up. If you need a tech guy or a tech person, guy or gal, to check it for you, do that. There's so much that we put into our computers right now. There's even options for your browser to save all your passwords or save your credit card number, so it's easier for you to shop, things like that. So make sure that your computers or any of your electronic devices where you do any of these financial transactions safe and virus free. Okay, so the next one is to check all 3 of your credit reports. Take advantage of this opportunity where we all can actually check our credit reports for free every week with the 3 reporting bureaus. It used to be, like Vincenza said, you can only request for 1 free from each of these 3 throughout the year. So people would stagger them every quarter. They'll pull up from Experian, the next quarter they'll pull up from Equifax. But right now you can do it for free every week. So take advantage of that. Go to and Crystalline put that on the chat. It's annualcreditreports.com is where you go and check your free credit report. You can also file a police report. This is a helpful step. Like I mentioned earlier, the police may only take this as a courtesy and not really pursue the matter. Depending on where you live, there might be a cybercrime division or whatever. But you may need proof that it has been reported. Okay, when you pursue an identity theft case with, say, a law enforcement agency, or when you file a report with the credit reporting bureaus, and they might request it. So it's always good to have that on hand. Keep a record of your all the actions that you did. Okay, all of the things that you did to respond to the situation. Keep a log of all your correspondence, including who you talked to, who you spoke with, the numbers you called, the dates of those calls, what you talked about during those conversations. Keep a paper trail if it was an email exchange with customer service or whatever, or the fraud department, any affidavits, any reports that were sent to you, or reports that you sent to them. So keep a paper trail, keep all of these records, because like I said, it can take a while. It's not a quick turnaround where you call them and you said, oh, my identity has been stolen, and okay, let's put your identity back, give it back to you. We wish it was that quick, but it could take forever. I know Vincenza has gone through this process before, and it's excruciating. It's frustrating, and it takes a while, and it's traumatic for a lot of people. But yeah, keep a record of everything that you did or will do as in response to an identity theft. You can also actually, this is probably the best. This can work for you before it happens, while it's happening, and after it happens. This is probably the best thing you would do if this happens to you, or you feel like you're vulnerable to an identity theft situation. Freeze your credit. Okay, so a security freeze stops new creditors from accessing your credit file, and it also stops other people or other institutions from opening new accounts in your name until you lift the freeze. And you can freeze and unfreeze your account for free with all the credit reporting bureaus. So credit freezes, it's amazing. It will save you. And like I said, it's something that can help your situation before it happens, while it's happening, and after it has happened to you. So here are some of the things you'd have to remember about a credit freeze. So a credit freeze, it's governed by federal law. Any losses are legally protected. It does not affect your credit score. It also does not apply to credit inquiries related to employment, leasing. If your landlord needs your credit history, they can, or insurance purposes. You must also contact all credit reporting companies if you want all of them to freeze your credit. It's not like you called Equifax and say, I want my credit frozen. Equifax or Experian or whatever, they don't talk to each other. Okay, you would have to talk to each of those credit reporting agencies to have your credit frozen. You can thaw and freeze using a PIN issued by the credit reporting company. This also is available for children, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Vincenza is going to talk about that, more about that later. This credit freezing thing, it does not affect your current credit cards. So it doesn't mean that you froze your credit, you cannot use your credit cards anymore. You can. It just nobody can access your credit file until you give permission or until you thaw it, is what we call it. So freezing we mentioned that it's available for children. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. Keep an eye on these things when you think your children or a minor in your family is vulnerable to identity theft, or you feel like they are a victim of identity theft. Usually, when you receive a pre-approved credit card offer in your child's name, like your 5-year-old is receiving a pre-approved credit card offer in the mail, that's a really big red flag right there. When you get turned down from government benefits, if you get a notice from the IRS, or you're receiving calls or letters about unpaid bills in your child's name, so these are kind of the warning signs that something is going on. Just remember that a child can actually have a credit file if, say, you listed them as an authorized user, or they are a joint account holder on an adult account. Say, if I have an account, say a savings account, and it's in my name, but it's for my kid, so he's a joint account holder, so he will have a credit file. If they've been an identity theft victim before, they should have a credit file. Otherwise, there shouldn't be any credit file at all. Okay, so just remember that. So this is how you freeze or lock. A lock is something that you pay for. It works similarly with a freeze, but freeze is better because it's free. These are the information for all 3 credit reporting bureaus. If you want to put a freeze on your credit reports.
Okay, so I'll just real quick, we thought it was important to mention, because it's so prevalent that children get their identity stolen, and it's typically from a relative, we thought it's worth mentioning, what are the steps involved if you have a child that's had their identity stolen. So like Jeremy said, credit reports are not necessarily established at a specific age. It's not like when you're 16, automatically you're going to have a credit file. There might be, if there's activity, then there would be, otherwise generally you wouldn't. If you do happen to uncover a fraudulent account in your child's name, again, like the steps for the adults, file a police report. Under the Fair Credit Reporting Act, if you do file some sort of report with an agency, with the police, you have the right to have the credit bureaus have all that stuff purged from the credit report and not be responsible for the debt. Also recommend going to visit identitytheft.gov, just like for adults, to report the fraud. And then once you do that, you unlock a lot of free resources that provide you with like a plan of how to recover. So no matter how you choose to move forward, freezing your child's credit is one of the best tools for securing that their identities and to prevent any future abuse, again, if that's what happened. Again, you want to check with each of the credit reporting agencies to get the specifics on how to do that. And just a quick tip, when your child turns 16, you may want to check if they have a credit report. This could help spot identity theft since most children under 18 don't have a credit report. So if there is inaccurate information on your child's credit report, you have some time to correct it before they apply for a job or try to get a student loan or a car loan or a credit card, or even if they try to rent a place to live. So we just thought it'd be important to mention that because it is so prevalent and they're 35 times more likely to get their identity stolen than adults. So how you can protect your credit information, check your credit report. Super, super, super important. Not only for identity theft, but also your credit score comes from your credit report. So you want to make sure that it's accurate. Make sure you understand how to read it. We went through all of the sections in the credit report. So you know what, we talked about what red flags, what are you supposed to be looking for? And then just being proactive. It's much easier to be proactive than to be reactive when there's identity theft. It's just with technology, it's just getting easier and easier, like Jeremy's story about UPS. I get deliveries from UPS all the time. So thank you for that heads up, because you just never know, right?
Yeah, it's FedEx, it's USPS, it's crazy.
Very scary. So our challenge to you is, if you haven't already done so, or it's been a little while, even if you're not applying for a loan or a credit card, please go to annualcreditreport.com and pull all 3 of your credit reports for free and review them for accuracy. Encourage your friends, your family, if you have adult children, at home, encourage them to pull their credit reports. So if you would love to share, we would love it if you would share with us one thing you learned today that you didn't know, that you're excited to use or you haven't heard about before after this webinar that you plan to implement. If you want to pop that in the chat, we'd love to hear that from you. Also, if you're interested in a deeper dive into personal finance, we encourage you to check out our PowerPay Money Master course. And that's accessible at extension.usu.edu/PowerPay. And if you are a Utah resident, you can apply for a fee waiver for the Money Master course, which is right on the website. We hope to see you again at one of our upcoming webinars. We just released rest of our summer and fall schedule. So please look on our website for that. Check on our website for details to sign up for those if you haven't already. And Jeremy is going to wrap up today for us.
Yes, thank you for joining us today. We are glad that you're able to attend. This program is brought to you by grant funding. The USU Extension is partnering with Department of Workforce Services to bring you these free webinars. If you would fill out our quick survey, it's just a quick 2-minute survey. You can scan this QR code, it will take you directly to that survey. Just let us know what we can improve, how your experience was with this webinar, so we could continue giving relevant information at our webinars. The link, I think, is also in the chat if you prefer to just click on that. If you take the survey, your name will be entered into a drawing, and we are going to pick a winner for our library series with the Salt Lake. We're going to pick a winner at the end of the month, which is it the end of the month already? Next week is the end of the month. So we have a couple more webinars, and we'll pick a winner. And if your name is chosen, then we'll send you an email to get more information from you. And we're not gonna ask your credit card information. We're just gonna ask you to verify an address so we can send the prize to the correct address so you can get your prize. If you're not already joining us on social media, please give us a follow. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram at Utah Money Moms. Join us on the blog as well, utahmoneymoms.com. We're always sharing financial wellness tips, tricks, and insights on the blog. Like Vincenza said earlier, if you want to register for more of our webinars, our summer series for August is out already. Check that out on finance.usu.edu/AFW. On that website, you will also be able to take our intake form if you're interested in hosting a free class for your community. So thanks for joining us today. Hope to see you again soon in one of our future webinars. Have a great day, everybody.